This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you may have missed this morning, but we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 4th of December, 2020, and I am 2J.
I'm 2.
And I am GK. In case you missed the headlines, here they are. In the Daily Nation, fall of the paper general. In the Standard, how the king of drama fell. And in the Star, revealed DP Ruto's 5-hour BBI crunch talks and other stories. So let us begin with the Daily Nation, the fall of the paper general.
Yes.
Now, before you go on, because I wasn't sure what a paper general was, but let us tell the people.
Yeah.
So this is a person who, upon completion of a government scholarship in a university, is promoted to a high rank in the army despite lack of combat experience.
Yes.
So you're there, but you don't have the experience.
Yes.
So who are they talking about?
The Kanjo General himself.
Who is that?
He was neither part of the military or went to university, if I'm not correct.
His name is Mike Sonko.
Okay.
Now, for those that do not know, Mike Sonko was impeached yesterday by the Nairobi County Assembly, despite him taking 52 MCAs down to Kwale, allegedly collecting their phones and hiding them in his pocket, and preventing them from voting, because apparently you can vote by remote control.
But he didn't know that.
But he did not know that. Well, news in the evening, he gets impeached. And yes, the guy, now from him getting impeached, what will happen is the county speaker will write to the Senate speaker so that Senate can begin impeachment proceedings against him. You can be sure this will work like clockwork. If it happened in the county assembly, it will happen in Senate. Raila will have a majority, and the guy will be home before you blink.
And it was unanimous. He was voted out by 88 MCAs, which is 2 more than the requisite 2/3 majority.
Yes.
But I think what this has really been reminding me about is the toxicity of Nairobi, the county. But it really reminded me of the Illinois, which is a state in the United States. And it has been called the most corrupt state in the United States. They say that corruption in Chicago is systemic. So from the time of 1869, they can date back corruption charges of government officials. They say that 6 governors have been charged with crimes after or during their governorship. It's just like a systemic thing that is happening. And I think, if anything, what it proves is the necessity for the NMS, right?
Absolutely.
If you have this corruption that is so ingrained in your county, just do away with the county system altogether. Have somebody who can deal with it in a militaristic manner.
Well, now you have an actual general.
Exactly.
Yes. But now I want to say something. Sorry, GK. There's a man called Ralph Emerson, an essayist in the 19th century, and I want to paraphrase what he says. He says, if you take him as the king, you better make sure you do not miss. And one Mike Sonko was used to taking shots at Uhuru Kenyatta, and now he has he's gotten the flag for it. But one more thing, if you thought that Mike Sonko's impeachment was big, I actually think that this is a dry run for the impeachment of William Ruto.
How did I know this was coming?
Of course, it always has to.
And you see how easy it was to get rid of Sonko? Imagine how easy it would be to get rid of.
Strong words. All right.
Well, we have a 3-part criteria that we will use to break down the headlines. We will ask ourselves, is it topical or speculative? Is it repetitive or groundbreaking? And is it thoughtful or just plain lazy? What do we think of the fall of the paper general?
I think it's a great headline, but minus the context, would everybody get that?
We'll park it for now. I think it was poetic. So we have the Standard, how the king of drama fell, and I think it's still speaking to pretty much the same thing. Have they told us anything different?
Nothing.
No.
Nothing different?
Not at all.
Let's move to the Star. The Star and other stories is telling us that DP Ruto poured out his heart over the Building Bridges referendum to his allies. And in it, he basically said, he felt betrayed. That they had originally had the objectives before, and then this has shifted, and that he was trying to basically tell his lieutenants that he cannot take a strong no stance on this. And the reason he says that is because it would be difficult to mount a political war against the boss. And he says that this would dash his chances of 2022. And interestingly here, so they speak of the 5 irreducible minimums, which we spoke about yesterday, the timing of the election, the content of some of the timing of the referendum to be done with the election. And then we have the content that he has issues with, but also having a simple yes or no is what he's having issues with as well. But then we have an interesting thing that the Star says, that a lot of the resistance is actually coming from central MPs.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of them saying, if you throw us under the bus, yet we've been saying we are no to BBI,
Yeah.
what happens next? But DP is being clever. We said that he's occupying middle ground because he's applying a bit of game theory. He's saying, what will give me the highest payoff? And I know that BBI will give him the extra positions that he can use to leverage, but he also knows that he has to pander to his political base, which is the Hustler Nation, which he perceives does not want BBI.
Yeah.
Look, I think William Ruto has one primary game of thrust.
Yeah.
That is 2022.
Yeah.
He does not care about the constitution. All he's doing is buying time.
Yeah.
And we put out 3 scenarios earlier this week. We said one, he probably could be broke.
Yes.
2, he probably thinks he'll get impeached.
Yeah.
And 3, there could be other diversionary things other than BBI that he might just come across.
Yeah.
Now, the best payoff, yes, is to wait until 2022 because that's when the biggest payoff will be, and that's the general election. But yesterday, I watched the man in an interview with Joe Ageo on Citizen, and he basically said the same thing, and I found it a little bit, I think, distasteful because this is what he said. He said the president kept him abreast of the BBI process until he discovered there was a referendum that was going to be there. In other words, he's actually telling us is that the president misled him. That is what he's telling us. All right?
In the same way that he's misled central MPs.
At the same time, he says he will not discuss his boss.
Yeah.
But he's already discussed his boss. And matter of fact, he's making him look bad because he's saying, in essence, he's impugning that the president betrayed him.
I think one thing that hasn't been sufficiently explained is the actual logistics of having a general election and a referendum at the exact same time. I think this guy's just out to create a crisis because I think in my head it just doesn't add up. If we have the general election and he is, for example, voted and he becomes a president, but at the same time we have a yes on the referendum which then expands the executive, what do? We are then thrown into another situation of crises that he's not even giving us an answer for. So I think this guy just, I don't think he knows what he's doing, and I want him to explain to me what is consensus.
What do they say? If you can't convince them, confuse them.
Maybe
that's where we're at. I wanted to dedicate a book today for the weekend to the Deputy President. It is called The Logic of Political Survival by Bruce Bueno de Mesquita.
Yes.
May he find something there.
You know, GK, as you do that as well, I also want to take something from the Bible. Yeah. King Solomon said this.
Oh, you're taking us to church.
All right.
I'm trying to remember my Sunday school lesson. It says
Should we get some organs?
And because, absolutely. Because he seemed very double-minded yesterday. What King Solomon says that a double-minded mind is unstable in all his ways, or a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways.
Fantastic. So guys, who do we give our winning headline?
The Nation.
I would give it to this. I'd give it to the Standard. I like the idea of this drama queen or the drama king.
King that fell?
Yeah.
I will go with the Daily Nation. I quite like the idea of the Paper Journal.
Yes.
So there you have it. On to the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country, where we have a 3-part criteria that we will use. We ask ourselves, is it humorous or dry? Is it satirical or pessimistic? And is it effective or just plain lazy? Yes. Where shall we begin?
We are Daily Nation. There is Ndula, and that is a drawing of Kemsa man having dinner. And it's got a bib. What was it called?
Yes, a bib.
A bib, and it's labeled Kemsa. And on the dinner plate is PPEs with those tomatoes.
Yes.
And the menu is captioned sauteed PPEs in breach of procurement sauce and diversion of funds soup.
It's so dumb, but it's funny.
I mean, they should let this thing rest.
Yeah.
Why should they let it rest? People, deep state has been at work.
They should. But a good cartoon.
Good cartoon.
It's humorous.
Gado, Standard.
Yeah.
You have a drawing of people that look like that's Turkana. It's a desolate place. And they have choppers hovering around labeled BBI. That's a rubbish cartoon.
Guys, I'm going to toss it
immediately.
That's not worth our time.
Okay, then we
finally
next, that is a caricature of
William
Ruto
as a chameleon.
As a chameleon, he's straddling between yes and no.
Yeah,
and
the yes is green and the no is red.
And no is red. On one side you have Uhuru Kenyatta, Raila Odinga, Musalia Mudavadi, and Francis Atwoli. And the other side you have, is that Murkomen, Moses Kuria, and Martha Karua.
The anarchists.
Yes.
Nihilists.
The nihilists. and the crazy economist.
Yeah. Okay, great. So who do we give our winning?
I would give it to the Star.
I'd give it to the Star.
I think it's making an apt commentary on what's happening. Absolutely. And I think honestly, if you're neutral, it means that you stand for nothing. You're apolitical. You're just
absolutely.
Yeah. All right, there you have it. The Star gives us our winning country. And now for our final thought, but before we get there, please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
And now our final thought, it is inspired by the law of evidence.
That was hard.
It was.
But before we get there, allow me to give a summary.
Go ahead.
Yes,
So this
please.
whole week, we've taken ourselves to law schools and yourselves. And on Monday, we explored tort law. And we defined tort law as a body of law that addresses and provides remedies for non-contractual acts of civil wrongdoings. Simply put, a person suffering legal damage will be able to use tort law to receive compensation from somebody who is legally responsible for wrongdoing. On Tuesday, we looked at constitutional law. Using the Constitution of Britain as an example, we argued that a constitution is best when it is short and vague and generalized. We argued that from early Greek history, democracies have been associated with constant legal change, and similarly, constitutions need change as circumstances alter and as flaws reveal themselves. On Wednesday, we looked at criminal law. Criminal law involves the government deciding whether or not to punish an individual for an act or omission that is called a crime. Using the case of a man named John Hinckley Jr., who attempted to assassinate the US President Ronald Reagan and went on scot-free, we explored how this one case led to the Insanity Defense Reform Act of 1984 that altered the rule of consideration of mental illness of defendants in criminal courts and proceedings. And on Thursday, we looked at international law. This is a body of legal rules, norms, and standards that govern the relations between sovereign states. We looked at the rise of globalization and whether this has interfered with the ability of the nation state to remain sovereign. And today, we look at evidence.
Yes, evidence was actually one of my favorite topics when I was doing my undergraduate degree.
Okay.
Hey.
I got the highest score in class. Huh?
Well done.
Thank you.
Well done, TJ.
So, the law of evidence governs what evidence may be presented and contested in the courtroom, the techniques for extracting evidence, and the role of lawyers, the jury, the judge in an adversarial system, which I will explain in a bit.
Yeah.
So evidence in law falls under anything that could be a material item, like a t-shirt that has blood or a glove. But it could also be assertions of facts, so statements that people make, that could be submitted as a means of figuring out the truth in any matter under investigation.
Yeah.
So evidence, very simply, can be proven by calling a witness, which is witness evidence, by producing documents, which is known as documentary evidence, and then the last thing simply as producing evidence, so producing real things that are evidentiary. So when considering the evidence needed to produce a conviction, we're concerned with three material things.
Yeah.
We're concerned with relevance, admissibility, and weight.
Yes.
So very simply, evidence of whatever type has to very simply be relevant and admissible. So being relevant means that it logically goes to proving or disproving some fact in issue. I think that's very clear. For it to be admissible relates to the fact of the issue and whether it has been properly obtained.
Correct.
And then lastly, the weight of the evidence is the confidence that the court can place on that piece of evidence. Does the court believe that this piece of evidence is useful or not to the case in question? So of course, in an ideal world, the court would take all evidence into account and they would use it to get to the truth of the matter. But the reality, of course, is that various factors actually get in the way of evidence being used. And most importantly is the system of trial. So in some jurisdictions, we have what is called an inquisitorial principle. And simply put, this means that the judge is the one who plays an active role in assessing the evidence and requesting for it and trying to figure out the truth. The judge is the one who is the person who pushes for the evidence.
Correct.
But what we have in the Commonwealth, and specifically in the English system, is called the adversarial system. And this means that the court cannot take any role to search for evidence, and essentially they just look at what is before them and then they weigh it up or down. So one thing I'll just look at very quickly is circumstantial evidence. And I'm sure we've all heard this in CSI or in Suits and various TV shows. But it's a category of evidence where the facts in question can be inferred. So you just read between the lines. And so it serves to increase the probability of proving something. So I'll give an example. 2M and I are married, right? And and 2M is murdered. But the fact that I took out a large insurance policy on 2M's life just before he died does not prove that I killed him. But if we couple it with the evidence that I was having an affair and the murder weapon was found in my car, the cumulative effect of all of that evidence kind of reduces the possibility of another kind of explanation, that maybe 2M was killed by Matatu Tout. I don't know. But then at the end of the day, the question still remains. Did I kill 2M? Right? We still have to weigh it up and figure out the answer. And I think that's what the crux of evidence law is all about. You may present all the evidence, but you still have to figure out, you know, is it admissible enough? Is it relevant enough? And so on.
Or does it have more weight?
Or does it have more weight? You were listening.
Yes.
Wow.
2J.
3-part criteria.
2J, because you choose to kill your spouse, we will call you OJ.
Oh my goodness.
Like O.J. Simpson?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's exactly where I'm going.
Okay,
and I love the chapter on burden of proof.
Yeah.
Especially in the case of O.J. Simpson. Now, burden of proof is self-explanatory. It is the obligation to prove. There are two principal kinds of burden: the legal burden and the evidential burden. The legal burden is a burden of proof. The evidential burden entails adducing sufficient evidence. We shall focus on the legal burden for now. Now, the standard of proof required to discharge the legal burden depends upon whether the proceedings are criminal or civil. Remember that. In the former, the standard required of the prosecution is proof which makes the tribunal of fact sure. In the latter, the standard required is proof on the balance of probabilities.
Okay.
This played in the O.J. Simpson case in 1994, when the accused was accused of murdering his wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her boyfriend Ronald Goldman.
He was just her friend. Yeah.
The boyfriend. Both had multiple stab wounds and had reportedly been dead for hours before being discovered. The public were convinced O.J. did it. Bodies with stab wounds, that's a crime of passion, right? Now, Simpson hired an all-star defense team, including John Cochran, Robert Kardashian, F. Lee Bailey, Robert Shapiro. Legal team was heavy. Anyway, trial goes on, and on September 27, 1995, the closing statement made by Cochran created a mantra. He said, "If it does not fit, you must acquit." The phrase caught on after Simpson tried on the gloves discovered by cops, believed to have been used by the killer, but they did not fit. The phrase would stick throughout the judicial system for years to come. After 9 months, 120 witnesses, 45,000 pages of evidence, and 11,000 exhibits, Simpson was acquitted. He was released. They couldn't prove the legal burden in this criminal case. However, after a civil suit was filed by both of the victims' families after the trial, Simpson was found responsible for Brown, Simpson, and Goldman's deaths and was ordered to pay a total of $33.5 million in damages. Being a civil case, the verdict fell on the realm of probabilities. All right. Now, to you, do you think O.J. did it?
100%. Yeah. But of course, that's the weird thing about criminal cases and civil cases. In a criminal case, the threshold is so much higher to prove.
Absolutely. And in a civil case, the balance lies in the realm of probabilities.
Right. So I looked at something called res gestae, and this is a legal term meaning things done. It's a Latin term. And so in evidence law, we see that words spoken that are closely connected to an event, that they could be considered part of the event, and their introduction would not violate what is called as the hearsay rule. So hearsay evidence can be defined as evidence not of what the witness knows himself, but what he has heard from others. And then I stumbled onto something called the Dying Declaration. So I'm going to tell you a story. Right? So Josephat Maina Kamura was a headmaster of Tetu School in Laikipia County. And he ran a pub called the New City Bar. He also operated a matatu called Busy. So his nickname was Busy. So one day after work, Mr. Kamura decides to go to his pub to supervise before he was heading home. This is June 27th, 2012. So he passes by the bar, he sees one of his employees, everything is fine, he leaves. So it was raining heavily and he couldn't use his motorbike, so he decides to walk home. So a neighbor identifies, so when he gets home, he's, I guess, tethering his cows and whatnot.
Yeah.
And a neighbor hears him and he's making a lot of noise. And the man is recognized as Mr. Kamura, who must have come home.
Yes.
So shortly afterwards, a motorbike approaches the area and Mr. Kamura is given a lift to somewhere else.
Yeah.
But as soon as the motorbike leaves or is heard leaving, the neighbor hears screams and he comes outside. Now, he finds Busy on the floor, bleeding profusely.
Oh, man.
And he asks, what's going on? And the man who's bleeding on the floor, Busy, says, I was attacked by the husband of Grace, who is a neighbor. So so he gets to the hospital, he is dead on arrival. This is his dying declaration that he was murdered by a man,
Grace's husband.
Yeah.
So 3 people are arrested. Among them is a man identified as George Mwani Kafera, who is the husband of Grace. So in his defense, when they go to court, Mr. Kafera is like, yes, but Grace is married to many people. So Justice Mary Kasango agreed and acquits him. So she says, since the dying declaration of the deceased was that it was Grace's husband who had attacked him, that single evidence against the accused was indeed very weak. So Justice Kasango concludes that there can be no justification in convicting him simply because his wife's name was Grace.
Absolutely.
If that was to be so, then one could convict many people whose wives are also called Grace for the murder of the deceased. And that is dying declaration. And so in the law of evidence, a dying declaration is the last testimony that would normally be barred as hearsay, but may in common law be admitted as evidence in criminal law because it is constituted as the last words of a dying person. So I found that very interesting.
Fantastic.
Guys, you're doing LLMs now, I've decided.
Fantastic.
And you can look it up. I think in Kenya it's Evidence Act Section 33, Part A.
Wow.
So you can look it up.
Lawyer 2M and Lawyer GK.
Yeah, we're aspiring. So guys, on a day where we had a winning headline from the Daily Nation and a winning cartoon from the Star, I want to leave you with this. It has been said that the legal profession, politics, and acting are very closely tied. The whole point is to have an idea and get it across to a listener, whether it is one person or a hall full of 5,000 people. And lastly, this week got me thinking, we ought to have more laws that reward virtue than the laws that punish immorality and badness. Have a lovely weekend. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, but find us on TV. We're on Time Peter, Good TV,
and Star Times.
See you.